Something is shifting around your love life, and it is happening so quietly that you may not realize how close the turning point already is. A man you have not met yet is moving toward you with an energy that feels steady, established, and deeply intentional. He is not coming to create another beautiful beginning that disappears into confusion. He is coming with the emotional maturity to remain, the practical strength to build, and the certainty to recognize what others failed to value. But one detail in this message may leave you speechless. His wealth is not the most important thing about him. His status is not the true revelation either. The surprise is the way he chooses you. There will be no chasing, no decoding mixed signals, and no exhausting uncertainty. As this connection deepens, you will feel the difference between someone who merely wants your attention and someone who is making permanent room for you in his life. You found this astral card vault reading at a moment when your heart may be tired of almost love-delayed answers and people who offered chemistry without security. The first card reveals why this relationship feels completely different, why this stranger has remained outside your story until now, and how his quiet devotion may finally teach your heart what safe, lasting love feels like. The first card is the Four of Pentacles. Here, tarot is not being used to predict a fixed future. This card acts as a psychological symbol, and its image tells a revealing story. The figure holds one pentacle against his heart, balances another above his mind, and keeps two beneath his feet. Everything valuable is protected. Nothing is handled carelessly. This reflects a man who has spent years building stability. He understands money responsibility and long-term planning. His wealth may be substantial, but it is understated. He does not need dramatic displays or constant praise to prove that he is successful. You may notice his abundance through quieter details, how calmly he solves problems, how carefully he chooses, and how little financial chaos exists around him. The card also speaks of emotional protection. This man has remained a stranger, not because he is incapable of love, but because he does not give loyalty casually. He may have experienced betrayal or watched people confuse attraction with commitment. As a result, he moves carefully. At first, his calmness may be difficult to read. He will not overwhelm you with promises or manufacture intensity. His interest appears through action. He remembers what you say. He follows through on plans. When he says he will call, he calls. When something needs attention, he handles it without turning his effort into a performance. The Four of Pentacles also mirrors your heart. Past inconsistency taught you to protect your peace, become selective, and stop ignoring warning signs. That was not bitterness. It was wisdom. Still, protection can become isolation when every new possibility is treated like an old threat. This stranger will not demand that you lower your boundaries. His consistency will allow them to soften naturally because you are finally receiving evidence that opening your heart can be safe. The deepest message here is shared security. He will not use money to control you or treat generosity like a debt. He wants partnership, a peaceful home, and a future where neither person carries everything alone. And this is the first clue that he may see you as his wife. You are not interested only in what he owns. You notice the man beneath the achievements. Around you, he feels he can stop guarding his life and begin sharing it. You learn that safety does not require closing your heart, while he learns that true wealth becomes meaningful when it is used to build a life with someone he trusts. But trust is only the beginning, because the next card reveals what taught him to guard that future so carefully. The second card is the Five of Wands. At first glance, this card appears restless. Several figures raise their staffs at once, each moving in a different direction. There is activity, friction, and no clear agreement about what should happen next. Psychologically, it reflects the kind of environment this man has learned to avoid. He may have spent years surrounded by competition, conflicting expectations, or relationships, where every conversation became a struggle for control. People may have wanted access to his life without understanding the discipline required to build it. Others may have been drawn to his position, his resources, or the image of security he represented, while showing little interest in the responsibilities he carried privately. That history made him discerning. What he protects most carefully is not his bank account. It is the future he has worked to create. He is cautious about who enters that future, because he knows that the wrong relationship can turn peace into constant conflict. He does not want a partner who treats love like a contest, creates unnecessary tension, or needs to win every disagreement. This is why his reserve should not be confused with emotional unavailability. An unavailable man keeps you at a distance because closeness makes him uncomfortable. This man moves slowly because closeness matters to him. There is a difference. He may keep certain parts of his life private at first, but privacy is not secrecy. He will not hide you, deceive you, or create separate realities. He simply believes trust should be built before every door is opened. As the connection becomes more secure, he shares more naturally because you have shown him that vulnerability will not be used against him. The Five of Wands also reveals that he has learned not to mistake conflict for passion. He does not need jealousy, instability, or emotional competition to feel desired. He wants a relationship where two strong people can disagree without becoming enemies. When he pauses before making a promise, it is not hesitation about you. It is his way of making sure that his words are supported by action. Once he decides to commit, he does not want that commitment to be temporary. This is one reason his devotion may surprise you. The man who appears most guarded in the beginning may become the person who fights hardest to protect the relationship. Not from imaginary threats, but from neglect, outside pressure, and the habits that quietly weaken love over time. But another question remains. What is it about you that ends his inner conflict? What allows a man this careful to recognize that you are not another temporary connection, but someone he could choose permanently? That question brings us to a card that looks completely different from the guarded energy surrounding him. The third card is the Fool. At first, this may seem like an unexpected card for someone so careful. The figure steps forward with very little weight in his hands, carrying only what is necessary. Psychologically, the Fool represents openness, authenticity, and the courage to begin without demanding complete control over the outcome. This is the quality he recognizes in you. You have learned from your past, but you have not allowed every disappointment to make you cynical. You may be cautious, yet there is still a part of you that remains curious about people. You can enter a conversation without immediately calculating what someone can offer you. You can listen without trying to impress, and you can care without losing your judgment. That balance is rare. Your compassion does not mean you ignore what is wrong. Your emotional steadiness does not mean you accept poor treatment. You can create peace without becoming silent, and you can disagree without turning the moment into a battle. This is what separates you from the conflict represented by the Five of Wands. He notices that difference quickly. This man may be accustomed to people changing around him once they learn what he has accomplished. Some become overly agreeable. Others begin asking questions that reveal more interest in his lifestyle than his character. He has learned to recognize when admiration is directed toward his position rather than the person carrying it. But you do something unexpected. You ask about the experience behind his success. You notice the responsibility, the long hours, and the choices that required patience. You may recognize a trace of exhaustion beneath his composure and respond to it without making him feel exposed. There may be a calm conversation where he shares something he normally keeps private. It could be a difficult decision, an old disappointment, or the pressure of always appearing capable. You do not rush to solve it. You do not turn his vulnerability into an opportunity to become indispensable. You simply understand. That moment changes something within him. Attraction begins to deepen into serious consideration. He realizes that being known by you does not feel dangerous. It feels relieving. The Fool also reflects the fresh emotional space you bring into his life. Around you, he does not feel trapped by old expectations. He can imagine beginning again without repeating the confusion of the past. You remind him that commitment does not have to feel like the loss of freedom. With the right person, it can become the freedom to stop searching. This does not mean he decides everything immediately. It means the possibility of permanence becomes real to him much earlier than he admits. He begins looking at you differently. He considers how naturally you might fit into the life he has built, not as an accessory to it, but as an equal presence within it. And his devotion will not become clearest through a dramatic confession. It will become visible through something far more convincing. Once he recognizes that freedom and steadiness in you, his feelings stop remaining private and begin changing the structure of his days. The fourth card is the Knight of Wands. This card carries movement, confidence, and the willingness to act. Psychologically, it reflects the moment when this man stops keeping his interest inside his own mind and begins making visible changes in his life because you matter to him. He does not simply tell you that he wants to see you. He protects the time. He looks at a demanding schedule and finds a way to create consistency within it. Plans are made in advance. Details are confirmed. You are not left waiting for a message at the last minute wondering whether you still have a place in his day. His energy becomes clear through follow-through. He remembers the small things you mention even when you do not realize he is paying attention. He may choose a place because you once said you liked the atmosphere. He may notice when your week has been unusually heavy and offer help that is useful rather than intrusive. The Knight of Wands can sometimes represent impulsive pursuit, but here its deeper psychological message is directed energy. His enthusiasm has a destination. He is not scattering attention between endless possibilities. Once he understands that this connection is worth protecting, he begins moving toward it with purpose. His financial stability also becomes visible in practical ways. It is not about dramatic gifts designed to create obligation. It appears through preparedness, freedom, and the ability to solve problems without panic. He plans ahead. He values quality. He may offer generosity, but he never treats what he gives as permission to control your choices. You do not feel rescued by him. You feel respected. There is an important difference between those two experiences. Rescue can create dependence. Respect creates partnership. He wants to make life easier where he can, but he also admires your independence and does not attempt to replace it. If this message speaks to the kind of love you are ready to welcome, you may comment, "I am ready to receive devoted love." His devotion also shows in the way he responds when something becomes inconvenient. An unreliable person is present while everything feels exciting, then disappears when effort is required. This man does not vanish when plans change. Emotions become complicated or life demands patience. He communicates. He adjusts. He remains involved. You will also notice that he does not expect you to carry the entire emotional relationship. He asks questions. He notices distance. He takes responsibility when he is wrong. Mutual effort becomes normal instead of something you have to request repeatedly. This is genuine abundance. Not luxury without intimacy, but a life where time, attention, resources, and care are shared willingly. Yet before all of those choices become part of your daily life, there's still the question of how this complete stranger first enters your world. Those practical choices matter. But the next card turns our attention to the ordinary moment in which your two lives may first cross. The fifth card is the Five of Cups. At first, this card appears to be about disappointment. A cloaked figure looks down at 3 overturned cups, while 2 remain standing behind him. Psychologically, it reflects how easily the mind can focus on what went wrong and overlook what is still possible. This may describe the emotional atmosphere surrounding your first meeting. You may not feel especially hopeful that day. You could be tired, distracted, or still processing something that did not work out as expected. The meeting may happen through a professional setting, a mutual connection, a short trip, an invitation, or a practical errand that gives you no reason to expect anything important. You may even consider not going. That is what makes the moment so easy to underestimate. The Five of Cups does not suggest that sadness creates the relationship. It shows how a meaningful beginning can appear while your attention is still turned toward an old ending. You may be thinking about someone who disappointed you, a plan that changed, or the amount of time you have spent waiting for love to become clear. Then the stranger enters the room. His first impression is not overwhelming or theatrical. He appears composed. He listens closely. There's something intentional in the way he speaks to you, even if the conversation begins with something completely ordinary. The first look may feel meaningful because it is calm. There is no immediate pressure to impress him. There is no confusing rush that makes you abandon your judgment. Instead, the familiarity comes from the way your nervous system responds. You do not feel the need to perform, compete, or protect every word. You feel present. That sense of recognition does not have to mean you have known him before. Psychologically, it may simply mean that his emotional steadiness matches something your heart has been needing for a long time. 2 subtle symbols may begin standing out around the shift. The first is a key. You may notice keys in conversation images, gifts, or practical situations. Symbolically, a key represents access, trust, and the opening of a part of life that was previously closed. The second is white flowers. They can reflect emotional renewal, peaceful intentions, and the possibility of beginning without carrying every old disappointment into the new connection. These are not predictions or instructions to search for proof. They are reminders to notice when your life begins making room for a different emotional experience. The Five of Cups also shows a bridge in the distance. It suggests movement from what was lost toward what still remains available. This stranger may become part of that bridge, not by rescuing you from the past, but by treating you in a way that makes the past lose its authority. And the most surprising part is how quickly his behavior begins removing uncertainty. He does not leave you wondering whether the meeting mattered to him. That quiet beginning does not remain uncertain for long, because what follows is clarity rather than confusion. The sixth card is the Eight of Swords. This card shows a figure surrounded by swords, blindfolded and bound, yet not completely trapped. Psychologically, it reflects the moment when an old fear becomes louder, precisely because something new is beginning to feel real. After the first meeting, mixed signals do not appear. He initiates contact. He confirms plans. He communicates with enough clarity that you are not forced to interpret silence or search for hidden meaning. His interest is not intense one day and distant the next. It becomes visible through repetition. That consistency may allow the relationship to move forward more quickly than you expected. There could be a thoughtful date where he remembers something you mentioned during your first conversation. Perhaps he chooses a place that feels comfortable rather than impressive, or makes sure the evening allows enough time to actually speak. The conversation continues longer than either of you planned, because nothing feels forced. He is curious about you. not only about what you do, but about how you think, what matters to you, and what kind of life you want to create. This is not love bombing. Love bombing creates emotional intensity before trust has had time to develop. It uses grand promises to make the future feel decided, while the present remains unstable. His approach is different. He does not promise forever after one conversation. He simply behaves in a way that makes another conversation natural, then another. Trust grows because each experience supports the one before it. The Eight of Swords suggests that the obstacle may not be his uncertainty. It may be your difficulty believing that clarity can be this simple. You may notice yourself waiting for the change in his tone, the unexplained distance, or the moment when his effort suddenly disappears. You may wonder whether his steady attention is too good to trust, because your past taught you that affection often came with confusion attached. Then something small changes. You hear from him and realize you are not anxious. You do not need to reread the message or ask someone else what it means. You understand his intention because he has made it clear. Exclusivity may develop naturally from this kind of connection. Neither of you feels interested in dividing attention or creating competition. There is no dramatic demand for commitment. Instead, a calm conversation confirms what both of you have already been demonstrating. His financial success gives him options, but his emotional availability gives the relationship direction. He is not merely capable of offering comfort. He is capable of participating fully. And that may be the part that unsettles you. When chaos has felt familiar, peace can initially feel suspicious. When you are accustomed to protecting yourself from disappointment, being chosen clearly can make you search for a danger that is no longer present. The swords around the figure are real, but so is the open path between them. The question becomes whether you can recognize that this relationship is not asking you to ignore your instincts. It is asking you to notice when those instincts are responding to the past, instead of the man standing in front of you. Yet clarity can create its own emotional test when your heart has learned to expect disappointment. The seventh card is the Seven of Cups. This card shows several possibilities suspended in front of one person, each carrying a different promise, fear, or illusion. Psychologically, it reflects what can happen when the mind has learned to expect hidden complications. Even when this man is clear, part of you may begin creating questions. You may wonder whether his calmness means he is holding something back. You may question why someone this established would be so generous without wanting control in return. You may wait for the moment when his attention changes. His schedule becomes an excuse, or his consistency reveals itself to be temporary. Past experiences can train the imagination to prepare for disappointment before disappointment has actually arrived. The Seven of Cups shows how fear can multiply possibilities. One quiet evening becomes a reason to wonder whether he is losing interest. One change in plans may remind you of someone who once disappeared. Peace can begin to feel suspicious because your nervous system became accustomed to love arriving with uncertainty. You may even mistake emotional steadiness for a lack of passion. There is no dramatic chase, no painful distance followed by an intense reunion, no constant fear of losing him. At first, that absence of chaos may feel unfamiliar, but he does not respond to your caution by becoming defensive. He does not accuse you of being difficult or demand that you trust him immediately. He understands that trust cannot be requested like a favor. It has to be earned through repeated experience. So he remains present. If you ask a difficult question, he answers it clearly. If you need time, he does not punish you with silence. If an old fear surfaces, he listens without treating your vulnerability as an inconvenience. He also respects the boundaries you have built. He does not ask you to reveal everything before you feel ready. He does not use his generosity to move the relationship faster than your emotional comfort allows. His devotion creates space instead of pressure. This is where defensive isolation begins to soften. Not because you abandon discernment, but because discernment starts giving you a different answer. His behavior continues matching his words. His private actions reflect his public intentions. Nothing important seems to require explanation after the fact. Before any proposal, he is already demonstrating the qualities of a husband. He protects the connection without controlling it. He considers how his decisions affect you. He communicates when life becomes demanding. He treats your peace as something worth preserving, not something he is entitled to disturb. The Seven of Cups asks you to separate possibility from evidence. Fear may offer many imagined outcomes, but his consistency keeps pointing toward one reality. This man is not asking for access to your life without offering commitment to it. As those imagined possibilities lose their power, another question becomes impossible to ignore. If this connection is so natural, why did it take so long for your lives to meet? As fear begins separating from the evidence in front of you, a deeper question finally becomes possible. Why did this meeting take so long? The eighth card is the Ace of Cups. Why did this stranger not enter your life sooner? The image shows a cup overflowing held carefully by an open hand. Psychologically, it represents emotional capacity. Not simply the desire to love, but the readiness to receive love, protect it, and allow it to become part of everyday life. That readiness may not have existed before. The delay was not punishment. It was not evidence that love had forgotten you. There were chapters that needed to close because they were teaching both of you what could no longer be accepted. You may have needed time to separate attraction from compatibility. Past connections may have shown you that wanting someone is not the same as being safe with them. You learned to recognize the difference between attention and effort apologies, and change promises and actual preparation. Your discernment had to become stronger than your fear of being alone. This man was also becoming ready. He may have spent years building the career resources and stability that now make commitment possible. But financial success alone was not enough. He also needed the emotional maturity to share his life instead of merely inviting someone into the parts that were convenient. There may have been relationships he needed to release, responsibilities he had to complete, or habits of emotional self-protection he had to understand. He had to become capable of offering a future, rather than presenting an attractive idea of one. The Ace of Cups reflects what happens when emotional availability finally meets practical readiness. This is where destiny becomes grounded. It is not a force removing choice or deciding every detail in advance. It is the meeting point between timing, opportunity, personal growth, and two people who are finally able to recognize what they could not have maintained before. And there is another possibility within this card. This man may not have been as far from your world as you imagine. You could have moved through nearby professional circles, attended similar events, known someone in common, or spent time in the same part of a city without meeting directly. Perhaps one of you was unavailable, distracted, or still committed to a path that had not finished teaching its lesson. You may have been close enough to cross paths, but not ready enough to notice each other. That is why the connection can feel both new and strangely well-timed. The overflowing cup does not represent love arriving to rescue an empty life. It represents two lives becoming full enough to share without asking the other person to repair what remains unfinished. Once that alignment occurs, progress may no longer feel slow. Introductions happen naturally. Future plans begin entering ordinary conversations. He starts including you in decisions that once belonged only to him. What began as careful interest begins to look like belonging. And one gesture may carry more meaning than any romantic speech. It could be an invitation into a private part of his life, a place beside him at an important gathering, or the quiet moment when he places a key in your hand and makes it clear that you are no longer standing outside the future he has been building. Once emotional readiness and practical timing meet, the relationship no longer develops only through private feelings. It begins reshaping real life. The ninth card is the Tower. At first, this image may seem unsettling. Lightning strikes a structure that once appeared permanent, and everything built on an unstable foundation begins to fall away. Psychologically, the Tower represents a sudden change in understanding. It is the moment when an old belief can no longer survive the evidence standing in front of you. For you, that belief may be that serious love must always be difficult. This relationship begins challenging that idea almost immediately. As he introduces you to trusted friends or family, you notice that his private behavior does not change in public. He does not become distant, vague, or uncomfortable about your place in his life. He includes you naturally. He listens when you speak. He makes it clear through small choices that you are not temporary. That clarity may dismantle more than you expect. You may have believed that financial conversations would create tension or imbalance. Instead, he speaks openly about planning responsibility and shared goals. He does not assume that his resources give him the final decision. He wants to understand what security means to you, and how both of you can contribute to the life being built. His wealth creates options. It may support travel, a comfortable home, meaningful celebrations, and the freedom to handle unexpected problems without fear. But money does not become the center of the relationship. It supports the life. It does not define the love. There may be a moment when the quiet weight of a key rests in your hand. It is a practical gesture, but you understand what it represents. Access, trust, belonging. Soon, shared routines begin forming around that sense of belonging. Morning light reaches across the kitchen, where both of you know where everything is kept. Holidays no longer require wondering whether you will be included. Trips are discussed in terms of we, rather than two separate lives attempting to coordinate. The Tower shows how quickly an old identity can change. You may have seen yourself as the person who always had to remain prepared to leave. With him, preparation begins to mean something different. It becomes planning a future rather than protecting yourself from its collapse. Conversations about marriage do not arrive as pressure. They emerge naturally because the relationship is already operating with commitment, honesty, and shared responsibility. His proposal may still surprise you, but it will not confuse you. There may be a quiet pause before the ring appears, a moment when you realize that every dependable action has been leading here. The proposal is not an attempt to convince you of his devotion. It is the formal expression of what he has already demonstrated. The Tower does not destroy this connection. It removes the old belief that love must keep you uncertain in order to feel powerful. You are not entering his life to be absorbed by it. You are entering a partnership where you can grow, contribute, disagree, dream, and remain fully yourself. But one final truth has not yet been revealed. The reason you will truly be speechless is not the ring, the home, the travel, or the financial security. It is what this man understands about you before you are finally able to say it about yourself. After the old belief in difficult love falls away, the final card reveals what takes its place and why his choice becomes unmistakable. The 10th card is the Ten of Pentacles. This is why you may be speechless. The image shows more than wealth. It shows continuity, belonging, and a life that has become large enough to hold more than one person's success. Psychologically, the Ten of Pentacles reflects the difference between having resources and creating something lasting with them. This man does not simply see you as someone he wants beside him. He sees you as someone he can build with. That realization changes the way he chooses you. He chooses you privately in the decisions no one else sees. He considers your comfort when making plans. He protects time for the relationship even when other demands compete for his attention. He asks what you think because your perspective has become part of how he understands the future. He also chooses you publicly. The people closest to him know who you are. You are included without having to request recognition. He does not keep the relationship hidden while enjoying its benefits in private. His behavior makes your place in his life clear. This is the certainty that leaves you speechless. It is not the house, the ring, the travel, or the financial freedom. It is realizing that a man with many options is not treating you like one of them. He is treating you like his decision. The Ten of Pentacles brings the story back to the Four of Pentacles. In the beginning, he was holding everything close. His energy was organized around protection, control, and careful access. Now he is still responsible with what he has, but he is no longer guarding it from love. He is sharing it with intention. His resources become part of a mutual life. His home becomes a place where your presence is natural. His plans begin carrying both of your names. His success no longer stands as evidence of what he built alone. It becomes support for what the two of you are creating together. You change as well. You do not abandon discernment. You simply stop using it as a wall against every good thing. You learn that receiving devotion does not make you dependent, and allowing someone to care for you does not erase your strength. There may be a quiet morning when the meaning of this relationship becomes fully real. Perhaps you are standing beside him in a home shaped by both of your choices, surrounded by small signs of a shared life. Familiar keys on the counter. Plans for the week. A photograph from a celebration. The ordinary evidence that commitment has become part of daily life. Destiny in this story is not one dramatic moment. It is readiness meeting courage. It is clarity supported by action. It is two people choosing each other again and again until the future no longer feels like a promise. It feels like something they are already building. That is the final message of this astral card vault reading. The wealthy stranger becomes recognizable as your future husband not because of what he can give you, but because of the peace, certainty, and mutual belonging he creates with you. If this reading brought clarity to your heart, subscribe and continue with another message from Astral Card Vault. You are not waiting to be impressed. You are becoming ready to be chosen, respected, and loved with intention.